Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. And as you already know, if you've followed Boomerocity for very long at all, we love the blues. And anytime I get to help promote blues, I do it, and especially with some great up and coming talent. And this is one of those occasions. This is my first time talking to this lady. Her name is Allison August, and the name of her second album here is August Moon, and it is incredible. Trust me on that. You'll definitely want this album as part of your collection. And when I heard it, I reached right out and said, I got to talk to her. Let's set something up. And we did. She was in the Seal Beach area of Southern California, and I, of course, here in the Great Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. And we had a lovely chat talking about August Moon and what all was involved in getting this album together. Of course, COVID played into it, like a lot of albums coming out now has. And so it was very informative, a lot of fun. Some familiar names came up that you'll want to listen for. And it was just a great chat. This is somebody I'm looking forward to keeping up with in the coming years because she is an amazing blues talent that if you love the blues, you're absolutely going to love her. So without any further ado, here is my first of what I hope are many more interviews to come with Allison August. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson. Take care. So there you are. There you are.
Hi.
How are you doing, Allison?
I'm good. How are you, Randy? Nice to meet
Uh,
you.
likewise. Where are you dialing in from?
My house in Seal Beach.
Oh, Seal Beach. How fun. Very
Yeah.
nice. So you're a ways away from the fires and all that, I take it.
I am. But that's kind of a topic close to me. My kid's father and my son are both LA County fires, so they've been up there since the
Ooh.
Malibu fires and working their tails off, trying to, take care of everybody and their property and make sure everybody gets out safe. It's been very, yeah, really stressful and
Oh, I can
lots of my
imagine.
musician friends up there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a definite, come to Jesus moment where
Has
you're
it?
like,
Yeah, I can imagine. I was curious, though, has it affected any of your gigs or anything like? I mean, it seems to be a very minor thing in the overall scheme of things, but has it impacted you gig wise, or has it just been knowing, not just, but has it been because, the people you know who are affected by it, either working them or, homes affected by it or what have you?
yeah, there have been I've had friends who, have lost gigs and there are venues that are gone and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a little bit slow lately. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, but we're
Well,
hoping it's going to pick up soon.
Well, I hope so too. I know there's a lot of benefits going on. I know when
Yeah.
this thing first started, I was supposed to interview Rick Springfield, and he lived up there in the Palisades area. And he had to bail literally at the last minute to do the interview, and we haven't rescheduled. But I mean, Flame is not biased, that's for sure. It goes where
No.
it wants to go. So,
Yep.
but
Yep.
well, I'm
It's a
glad you're
heavy.
okay.
Thank
Uh,
you. Yeah, you
and
too.
And I'm glad I just recently discovered you. I wish I'd discovered you on the first album, but
Uh,
when Mark sent me this, I loved your sound, and I thought,
oh,
gosh, I
thank
wish I'd
you.
discovered you earlier. So before we get into the new album, if you don't mind, tell me and the viewers that will be seeing this or podcast listeners that will be listening to it a bit about you and how you got into music and why the blues.
Okay. So I'm from a very musical family. My great grandparents, grandparents, parents are all musicians. So on kind of both sides. So my grandparents both played in the symphony in Sacramento,
Oh, wow.
and during the winter months they would go up to Tahoe and play for Elvis and Frank
Wow.
Sinatra, and so they were both string players, amazing musicians. And my parents both met at San Francisco State in the music department. They're both piano players. And my great grandmother actually, um, when the movie houses came out, she would play piano for the silent movies in the movie
How
houses. And then
cool.
she ended up being in an orchestra too. So everybody,
Wow.
everybody in the family was just doing music. There would sometimes at my house be, both of my parents practicing in separate rooms in separate keys and just crazy stuff. So yeah, and I also just recently figured out, I don't know why it took me so long to figure this out. My parents had a huge record collection. And, but now I figured out that everybody in the record collection was a piano player. So there was Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, uh, Mose Allison, um, all of these kind of people, but they're all piano players. So
My goodness.
yeah,
Wow.
great artists. Yeah.
Not that you would ever get rid of the collection, but I'm sure there's some rarities amongst those albums
Oh
there
yeah, yeah,
too,
yeah.
huh?
They've got great stuff. Yeah, yeah,
How
absolutely.
fun. Well,
Yeah.
I love this new album of yours. Tell me about what led up to it, how long it took. I mean, you got some pretty cool musicians on there too.
Oh
So
wow,
tell me
yeah.
about it.
So on my last album, Holy Water, I worked with my writing partner, David J. Carpenter, who's in his own right an amazing musician and writer. Um, and actually, some guys that I went to college with, Fullerton College, and we've all been friends and been playing since we were 18 years old. Brian Head, who's an amazing drummer, Dino Soldo, great multi instrumentalist, and he tours with Lionel Richie now, but did Leonard Cohen. They're just amazing musicians. And we teamed up with Coco Montoya. Greg
Wow.
Leese is playing on it. And my good friend Paul Barrere, who passed away, unfortunately, from Little Feat.
Mm.
So I did a lot of writing with those guys. Um, and I just always feel like, that was kind of the catalyst to this album.
Hmm.
So the way this album started was I went to go see Paul and Little Feat play up in the valley. And my friend Jerry Manuel was there, who's an amazing sound guy. Coco Montoya was there. And Paul and I were sitting in the back room waiting for them to go on. And Tony Bronigal walked in. And so we sat down and we all started talking. And I kind of feel like Coco and Paul both kind of bullied him into producing my album. They're like, you got to do an album for Allison. You got to do it. And so I was heading out to Europe uh, in a couple weeks, and he said, "Hey, well, call me when you get back, and let's talk about what you want to do." So I went to his house after I got back from my trip and brought my guitar and um, sat down and started playing one of the first songs I wrote for the album, which is called Dashboard Madonna.
Hmm.
And, I'm sitting across from him playing the song, and I look up, and directly across from me on a mantle was a Madonna statue. And I thought, this is kismet. This is the universe telling me this is the guy, this is the place. And the
Yep.
rest, is history. I'm a big believer in that kind of stuff. And Tony's been such a great ally, and I've learned so much from him, and he introduced me to some amazing players. I got to work real closely with Mike Finnegan, the piano player, and we got to do some writing and work on some stuff together. But the list of players is unbelievable, and I feel so it's kind of surreal to get to work with some of your musical heroes, and just bringing each person in. You think, oh God, it can't get any better than that, and then it does, you
It
know.
does, yeah.
So yeah, just an amazing experience from start to finish for sure.
Was any of it intimidating for you? I mean, I know you're very experienced in the music business, so I don't mean for it to sound like you're a newbie and talk. I'm not talking down to you, obviously, but I know musicians, even those that are at their pinnacle, they get across. So you get a Steve Lukather talking to Joe Bonamassa, and you get them both, kind of maybe get a little tongue tied or something. So was any of this working with these people and on this album, did it intimidate you at all?
Um, you know what? It's a funny thing. So I've been a working musician since I was about 15 years old, started playing in bars at 15. Sorry, mom, you know. But so I've gotten to play with some great people right from the very beginning. I wouldn't say I've been intimidated, um, because they, with great players and people who are really well known, who've played their whole lives and have had a huge career, I've found that the bigger they are, the more humble they are.
I
And
found that too. I agree.
Finnegan and Bronigal and all of these guys have been so kind and so encouraging, and always first thing right off the bat would come up and say, "Oh man, I love your stuff, I love your writing," and just made me feel at ease.
Hmm.
And I will say, more than nervous, I'd say I got kind of giddy, just like so excited, like, "Oh my God, I'm doing a song with Coco Montoya," or even with Paul. Just it's just the most fun thing ever, writing a song and making music and bringing all of these uber talented musicians who each has their own style, bringing them together and watching them create something new, and creating this unique sound, out of something. It's like you're making something out of thin air.
Yeah.
It's magical.
I've been in situations where I got to be kind of a fly on the wall I'm not a musician at all.
Uh-huh.
I barely do an air guitar, but there's just, there's, and sometimes I fail at that, out of tune or something. I don't know. But, uh, but just kind of standing back and observing, there's something, I hate to use the word magical, but it kind of is, where you just see people
Yeah.
when there's just something clicking, a synergy that
Hmm.
kicks in. You
Yeah.
can feel it. It's very palpable. And I've been in situations where it's been the exact opposite. You can feel the tension in the air. You can cut it with a knife. But when it's on the positive side of things, really great things happen. And it seems to have a lasting effect when something's created in that environment. Have you found that to be the case?
For sure. For sure. I always say, and I want everybody to learn how to play something, even if you can pluck three notes on a guitar. It's so good for your soul. But I always say, playing with poor players is like having an endless root canal. It's I can't describe it. It's just horrible. But playing with great players who are good listeners, and everyone's kind of feeding off of one another's energy. It's just pure magic, and makes your hair stand on end. It's like it's a palpable energy in the room
Hmm.
that just is euphoric. There's nothing
Hmm.
else like it in the world.
I can imagine. How long did the album take to make from, say, solid concept to in the can ready for printing, so to speak?
So that's a good question. So, from the time I went to Tony's and started working, I think that was maybe 2019. So
So
we had COVID in between, which took us out for a couple years, or we definitely would have finished it sooner. Um, but yeah, we started recording at Slide Away Studios, which is Chuck Cavoris's place,
Hmm.
which he had an amazing studio here. He's since moved to Nashville and has his whole setup there. But Chuck's an amazing slide player, and so has a great sensibility about players and people to bring in, and and uses all kind of vintage equipment. And so there are the songs that we recorded at Slide Away have a slightly different sound, a slightly different edge to them. But that was just so fun. And we had Finnegan and Billy Watts from Teresa James's band, and Paul Barrere, of course, and then my guys. And oh wow, it was just so super fun, really fun.
So, so what do you think when the pandemic hit in the middle of all this? I've talked to a lot of artists during that time and since then, and there's still great music coming out that was conceived during that time. So, what were your thoughts about it all? I mean, how did it affect? I know, especially in Southern Cal, it seemed like people were really, homebound a lot more strictly than we were out here. So, what
Mm-hmm.
was going through your mind then?
So it was a weird time, man. It was weird for everybody. But my son had just moved to North Dakota to work on the fire department there. So he was out there, and, I was feeling mama bearish and worrying about him out there. And I'm going to say the first probably 2 weeks, my daughter and I sat at opposite ends of the couch, just eating chips, staring at each other like, what's happening? What are we going to do? you know?
Yep.
And then, um, and then I kind of just decided to lean into it. And I thought, wow, this is maybe the first time in my life when I've got an unlimited amount of time to create.
Hmm.
So I really took advantage of that. And I have some amazing friends who live close to me. In fact, my friend Michelle, who helped me with the album cover, is an amazing artist. So we did a bunch of different art projects, which are now all over my house, and the album cover is part of that. And started writing, and my friend Ted Russell Camp has a studio up in LA. And I called him one day and said, hey, Ted, how do I know COVID's going on, all that kind of stuff, but how would you feel about me coming up and working on some stuff with you? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Come on over. We're all good over here. So Ted kind of kept me rolling throughout COVID, and we did some writing and some working on stuff. And then slowly but surely, as things came back to life, we got back in the swing of things and got right back into the album, Tony and the rest of the guys. And yeah, we just kind of finished everything probably about 6 months ago. And as far as like mixing and mastering and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So yeah. And JP Barriondo, I'm sorry, was our mixing guy, and just kind of a wunderkind. And then we ended up mastering with Gavin Lurson. He's amazing. So just everything kind of came together in this miraculous way after all this stuff. So I have to say I'm extra proud of this album, and super thankful and grateful to everybody who played on it and participated, and did huge favors, and just I still don't really know how all this happened, if I'm being honest. I feel it's like an impossible thing that came
Hmm.
together, and I have to thank Tony a lot for that, because everybody loves Tony. And so if he asks them, hey, I need you to do me a favor, they're like, yeah, absolutely. So super
Very
great.
cool. Were
Yeah.
there any surprises that you ran into in the making of this album? Something that caught you completely off guard?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. Wow. Um, well, it's another good thing. I would every once in a while feel like I'd run into a stumbling block, and uh the last thing we were thinking about was, man, some percussion on this would just be amazing. And oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart here. We ended up getting I'm losing my mind here. We'll come back to that.
Okay, sure, no problem. Which album or which album, which song on the album would you point to as a calling card? I know we can't, as I always say, you can't ask what your favorite song is because that's like picking your favorite kid, and we're not supposed to do that really. But
Oh yeah,
um,
no.
what song on the album would you point to as a calling card?
Oh gosh. Um Probably Dashboard Madonna.
Mm.
So that one's kind of about my love-hate relationship with LA. I've lived in this area for a long time and lived in LA for a long time. Um, and it's such a kind of artistic mecca, right? For artists and musicians and creators. Um, but at the same time, when I'm driving up there, I'm just overwhelmed by the poverty. And you're driving up the freeway, and on the overpass you see trailers and tents and people with signs, and it's just heartbreaking that there are people who are struggling just to survive, and it just kills me.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what that song's about. And it's about the fact that music has always been kind of a medicine to me, and that's what keeps me going. And I know for a lot of people, that's kind of what blues is about, right? It's
Hmm.
about you know not celebrating the negative parts of life, but just leaning into the reality of that, with the hope that there can be change and that things
Hmm.
can get better, and that there are endless possibilities to solving problems and making life better for everybody.
I agree with you on that. And I think that for me, the calling cards I picked, I actually had two. One was Blues is My Religion, and then the other is Afraid of Love. I thought they both were something very, I mean, I love the whole album, but those are
Thank you.
songs I kind of point to as like, hey, if you like these two, I think you're going to like the rest of the album. And so both great songs. Stories behind them. Would you care to share about either one of those?
So, Blues is My Religion is so I don't know if you know my friend Dennis Jones. He's a great blues guy, guitar player, singer. But so we've written stuff together before, but that Blues is My Religion actually came out of a conversation that we were having, just talking about, because we both grew up going to church, and my dad was kind of a Southern Baptist, and I did, get my start singing in church at 13 years old. That was my first audience. Um, but just I feel like things have gotten a little bit weird with that, and that people don't respect one another and don't respect one another's religions,
Hmm.
feelings, um, lifestyle choices. And I think for people who read the Bible, it's all about loving your neighbor and being kind to everybody and respecting everybody. And, I would just like people to move back into that. No
Yep.
matter what your religion is, don't allow, other people to come in and say, well, this is what it means. No, it's about taking care of each other. We're all part of humanity, and that's what it's about.
I agree. I agree. Funny you should mention that about the area, though. In my much younger days, I grew up in Phoenix, and
Okay.
for a while, I was dating a young lady in the Upland, Ontario area who was a preacher's daughter. So, and that, so,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Not exactly
lots of
Bible
stories
study.
about them. Yeah.
So yeah, so and really churches in Southern California were completely different animal than the rest of the country, in my opinion. There was,
Yeah.
very progressive in their methodology of reaching the communities and things like that, but very, very forward
Mm-hmm.
thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking back in 77, 78 when that happened. So
Mm-hmm.
and then I
Uh-huh.
wound up going to a little Bible college up in Fresno for a year as a result of that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I get where you're coming from when you're talking about all that. And it
Mm-hmm.
have I don't know if you want to call it evolved or devolved, since those days, but it's it's interesting times we're in these church circles, isn't it? So,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
it is. Yeah, but Dennis and I were just having a conversation about exactly that. And that's how that song came about. And he actually said, I don't need any of that. He said, I went to church enough. He said, the blues is my religion. And I was like, that's a song.
ding ding ding.
Yep, exactly,
How
exactly.
about
And
Afraid of
that's,
Love?
so afraid of, ooh, Lenny Castro. That's who's
I was
playing
going to ask you
percussion.
about him. I mean, now I've yet to talk to him, but I've like interviewed the guys in total a whole bunch of times. In fact, Steve Lukather holds the record of being interviewed most by Boomerocity since I launched it. And of course,
Oh, I love it. He's amazing.
oh, he's and crazy. I love him. But David
Yeah,
Pace and Joseph Williams, I mean, all those guys, I catch them every
yeah.
time I can. But Lenny, I love watching him play. He's just so happy-go-lucky in his approach. And I've seen him with him, seen him with Bonamassa, just all sorts of. The guy's just a walking talent, man. I love him.
He's just an absolute monster musician. And so everybody I talked to when we were talking about percussion said, well, you really need Lenny. It's got to be Lenny. He's the guy for this project, but you'll never be able to afford him. I was like, oh, but so he ended up coming through and did me a big favor, and it's just elevated the whole album. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, I was like, wow, just he's amazing and such a super nice man. I've gotten to meet him and his wife a couple times, and just the best people. Yeah.
I hope to interview him someday. I feel about him like I did. Um, oh gosh, Eric Clapton's bass player slipping in my mind right now. Nathan East. Nathan East.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think Lenny's kind of like the Nathan East of percussion. You watch
Absolutely.
Nathan play and he just exudes this peace, and
Right.
this friendliness, this love, and just happy go lucky. And Lenny's the same way. I just
Yeah.
you're on a journey with him when you're watching him play, and
Yep.
I just I've always enjoyed him. We got to see him with Toto a couple times, and
Yep.
just always a treat. So that's
Yep.
I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot to write that down on my questions, and then when you mentioned it, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
So very
Absolutely. Yeah.
cool. Well, what's your plans for the rest of the year? What you got going? I know with these fires kind of have things on a kind of a tentative hold, but what else you got going on?
So we're still sussing out where to have the record release, but it's coming right up. It's going to be March 21st. The record
Hmm.
comes out. So super excited about that. It's been such a long time coming. And so I'm in the process of, figuring out where we want to do the record release. And we've been talking to a couple different venues. And then we're going to do a couple big house parties to celebrate with the whole band there.
Mhm.
And booking some gigs and hoping to put some tours together for this summer and support the album. And can't wait to get out on the road with the guys. My band is just incredible. Um, I've got David J. Carpenter playing bass, and he's my MD and, you know, work husband and co-writer. And then Brian Head is playing drums, and Billy Watts on guitar. We've got Jimmy Z playing sax and harmonica, just amazing. Phil Parlapiano plays keys.
Mhm.
Then we've got Jen Castonen singing backups. And it's just a monster band. And there's nothing more fun in the world than being up on stage with those guys. The energy is incredible. And, you know, when you have a band like that behind you, I feel unstoppable. It's the most fun ever.
Well, I hope you can make it out this way so I can catch you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
We're a couple of time zones away, but hey, we're music lovers and blues lovers out here. So
Yep.
let me know if you're making it, and I'll be sure to catch your guys' gig. And like I said, I love your music, and I look forward to getting the word out on this. And
Thank you.
anytime you need some help in getting the word out, please let me know, and
Oh, will
we'll
do.
set up one of these, and we'll get the word out. I'll do my part. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you
well,
so
Allison,
much.
this has been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to
Absolutely.
you again down the road.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much,
Uh,
Randy. We'll see you soon.
Stay safe. Take care.
Okay, you
Bye bye.
too.
This
Bye
has
bye.
been another stellar episode of Boomerocity with your host, producer, and friend, Randy Patterson. The theme music is Roll the Dice by our good friend Quentin Hope, and all rights reserved and used by permission, of course. Post-production is done by Cardinal Sins Productions. The Boomerocity name, logo, and content is copyright protected, so all segments may only be used with written consent by Boomerocity and or its assignees. You should direct your inquiries to input@boomerocity.com, and the copyright is 2025.